when the palace falls and the parlor's gone, we all must leave. But it's not the end. We'll meet again at the festival of friends. Smiles and laughter and pleasant times. There's love in the world, but it's hard to find. I'm so glad I found you. I'd just like to extend an invitation to the festival of friends. Some of us live and some of us die. Someday God's gonna tell us why. Open your heart and grow with what life sends. That's our ticket to the festival of friends. Of a good thing past. These days of darkness surely will not last. Jesus was here and he's coming again to lead us to his festival of friends. Snake Highway, sheet metal ballet. It's just so much snow on a summer day. Whatever happens, it's not the end. I'll see you at the festival of friends.
Good morning, Lighthouse. Woo! We're at it again. Happy Valentine's Day, Jeff.
Thank you. I feel very blessed to be having a Valentine's Day with you and right here and not in some romantic location with my girl.
When Bruce was singing that song, you had a moment there. You said, "Ooh, I like that."
I know. Well, Bruce's lyrics, they found it's like a wormhole right in my heart. So it's quite amazing. It is Valentine's Day, isn't it?
It is, and I was telling everybody that if they could guess what color of bow tie I had on today,
well, that would be
they would get a gift. And I kept seeing red. They was thinking, they thought that because it was Valentine's Day,
it should be red.
And you know, honestly, that process did not go into my head when I was preparing this morning, that it was Valentine's Day, I should put a red bow tie on. I feel like they were way ahead of me.
You think that
This bow tie for me represents, it feels like the Roaring 20s.
it looks good though.
See the little squares on there?
I see that.
That's like the Roaring 20s for me. I don't know, I just, when I look at it, it makes me think of like, you know, The Great Gatsby, it has that kind
Yes,
of, I don't know,
yes.
like, so I just thought, well, I'm feeling like we're rearing and roaring and ready
It's a-
to roar.
It's a roaring Valentine's Day. Hey, to all of you, we're so glad that you're here. And if you can, invite someone. You see right there inside the online campus, there's an opportunity to invite someone. Do that. Chat. Say hello. I'd love you guys to engage in chat today. We're going to really have a great conversation today. We have some new worship music to follow. It's going to be a great day. And to all of you, we do want to wish you guys a beautiful, maybe we should just reframe it a little bit. Maybe it's just a happy day of love. You know, I mean, it's not always the easiest day for people either, right? There's all kinds of emotions that are tagged with this. So just from our heart to yours, I'm going to tell you, one of our values is let love rule. So let love rule in your heart today. I think that's probably a good posture. But we're so glad that you're here. And Jeff, it's going to be a good day.
Pull back the arrow on the bow and let fly the Cupid arrow of love.
Let it fly across the world. We do need to let some love roll.
Yeah, I agree.
Fix that. But to Michael, so good to, I'm sure that you are watching. Thank you for being the love of my life. And I love you today. And so thank you for being here again. If you have any prayer requests or things you want to chat about, we're tracking the chat today as well. Make sure as we walk through this content today, if there's something that's on your heart, your spirit, I would love you to chat about it. Put it in the chat. And if you're on Facebook, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. And let's jump right into this, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm excited.
What are we talking about today?
We felt like really taking some time to talk about what are the values that shape who
Yes.
we are. And last week, we just used Israel as an example of a people group that were able to maintain their sense of identity, their collective sense of identity without a national land boundary holding them together, something physical. They had something beyond what was physical that kept them as a collective throughout the past several millennia, and they've been able to walk through that. So we're like, what is that for us?
Right.
You know, beyond the walls, beyond the building, what are those things that are perimeters around us that shape who we are? And we really wanted to dig into that. I think last week we talked how love is an overarching, a meta value that shapes who we are. And today we wanted just to continue that discussion.
And really, I mean, when we think about love and what's a meta value, it should be. That's the beginning of everything, right? It's love. It should be the foundation. So we started there. And but when we talked I've been sharing, one of the things we know is that our values are what shape us. And in the current world, I mean, it feels like with so much foundational shifting, that it's important too, just finding something to hold on to in this world, right? Things are so crazy. And I was processing with Gibson this week, Jeff, and we were talking about just the fact that there's been no school, and there's been this disconnection from social norms. Everything changed from the sports, and then he's old enough now. He's keen to the news, and so he's watching the news, and he's seeing the press releases, and he's seeing the pandemic. He's seeing all of this. He was asking me this week, Jeff. We were looking back at history, and he was looking at even moments in time where we had different allies that we have now, and he was trying to figure out how that happens, and so the national global scene is becoming he's more perceptive to it. And I was just trying to give him some understanding about the global timeline of things. But what I sense is that with so much shifting, it's really important to reorient around value and what is really most important. Mm-hmm. Because those are the things that move past chaos, they move past moments, and they move through time. There's things just that are valuable to us that if we lock our life around that, I think it will stand the test of time.
Yeah, I agree. So the question that we would maybe like to just put out there for us today is, if love is the overarching value of the community, where does love begin? How does one, do you just kind of conjure up, I'm going to love, or is there a genesis of love that that we can look to for where love begins that journey, begins that launch? And the scripture that comes to mind as that acute insight into where one goes to get love, where one goes to activate that energy of love within the heart, where one goes for that, is one that Jesus often quoted. It predates him, by a millennia and a half or so. And it's a quote that Moses gives to the children of Israel, the next generation, as they're embarking on the conquest of a land boundary. Right? So they're wandering, they don't have a land boundary, and he's like, you're getting ready to step into a place, vineyards you've never planted, houses you've never built, cisterns that you never dug. And he says, here's the thing that you need to know about all of that. What God desires from us is love. Now, here's where that begins. And then he says, listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. The verb there is to listen. That before we can love, we have to listen to where the origination of that love is coming from.
Yes.
And he says to him, God brought you out of Egypt.
So
God loved you, rescued you. And from the posture of hearing about that story that your parents told, listening to that again and again, it fills up the reservoir of love within your heart so that you can pour that back out. Which really, one of the first values the first value that we're going to talk about underneath the meta value of love is this value of listening. Listening and hearing both what God has to say, as well as listening into what our neighbors are saying. It's hard, virtually impossible to, how are we doing over here, brother?
I'm making sure that audio is working. I'm getting texts from the community saying that there's an audio problem. Can you guys hear us okay? So if you could let us know now, I think we fixed it, but I want to make sure that we're good. So
do we need to pick up somewhere? Were we not?
Let's see. Everybody good? Let's see. Well, people are actually talking like it's good now. So
okay. So as it relates to the way forward to love, both to love God and to love our neighbor, it begins in a posture of listening. We really can't effectively love our neighbor unless we listen to them.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense because as someone involved in a relationship, Jeff, I do know that if you do not learn to listen, I'm not sure they hear your love. Listening certainly follows love.
What's that the little YouTube clip of the little boy, listen, Linda, listen?
Listen, Linda, listen, Linda, listen, Linda. If you haven't seen that, you should Google that YouTube clip. Listen,
he's in
Linda.
trouble. He's 5 years old or something, and he's in trouble with his mom, 4 years old, and he's trying to tell his mom that she needs to listen to what he's saying. And so this idea of listening is what we really want to unpack and talk about how for Lighthouse it has been a significant value, experience, way in which we process going forward. We frequently will say when we're talking about listening that we don't want to and we choose not to react to situations, but to respond to God's voice. And so instead of being reactionary, the pandemic happens. How do we react to that? Right. Let's stop. Let's listen and let's respond to what God is saying in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And for for anything. And if I were to maybe give for me as it relates to Lighthouse, just a little bit of a narrative here, so you can see how that has played out in some of our story.
Yes.
When I first came to San Francisco in 2003, the first thing that we did as a community is we called them sacred assemblies.
Okay.
And we went on a 40-day fast. This was in September of 2003, a 40-day fast. Where everyone took a day or took some time, and then we'd gather once a week in the evenings to pray together, and we would just listen. Pray and listen, pray and listen. we came around after that, and in the spring of 2004, during Lent, we felt like we should do it again because we experienced so many baptisms. I think we had like 60 or 70 baptisms following that 40-day fast. And so we came around the spring, we're like, let's do it again. We did it. We did the fast again. Well, while we're fasting, I had learned that the house next door to 252 Broad Street was being used as a human trafficking house. So they were bringing in Chinese immigrants, and they had upwards of 17 people living in this house. They had them out in the back in like little sheds.
Oh my gosh.
They had taken like a sledgehammer and broke up the concrete in the garage and just tapped toilets into the sewer line. And they were just out exposed in the open. They had put bars on the inside of the house. And I learned that this was going on, and it just infuriated me. Started praying about that during that time. Well, the city came in, shut the house down, and then the house went up for sale on the market. And I was like, we need to purchase this house, and we need to redeem it.
Wow.
We need to use it for something good. So it was interesting. We were praying for it, praying about it, and I was told that the seller would not sell to a church.
Amazing.
The owner
of
was
course.
determined not to sell to a church. I was teaching a class on prayer at a college, and I had just got the text right before I walked into the class, and my real estate agent says to me, he won't sell to us. And I got up in front of the class, and I was so angry. And I remember praying in front of this class. We're talking about prayer. I remember praying in front of this class, just crying. I was like, how is it? How can the heathen rage? I was just crying out to God. It's not right that this house gets to be used to traffic people.
Right.
And here we are wanting to redeem it for something good. And I'm like, God, you can change his heart. And I just sat there. The room got really quiet. And we're in this posture, just kind of listening. The class is listening, and I'm crying. The phone rings in class.
Wow, same moment.
I look down at my phone, and I'm going, oh my goodness. Class, this is the real estate agent. Please hold on a second.
Wow.
So I pick up the phone. I was like, hey, Rock. He's like, hey. The owner just now called me. He's willing to sell.
Amazing. During class.
During the prayer, like
Unreal.
the follow-up prayer. So we purchased that building, and we started fixing it up. We're like, we're going to kind of really dig in roots here in the Bayview. So we start planning. We bring in a speaker. This is in the bring a speaker in to speak. His name is Morton Bustard. He comes in to speak.
Wow.
We've been gutting this house. We're preparing. We're like, this is where we're going to build our community. He walks in the first night of Friday night. He stands up. He does not know the church. It's his first time to be there.
So good.
Doesn't know anything about what's going on. I had just picked him up at the airport. We drive in. I said, hey, if you want to go change your shirt and get dressed, you can go to the house next door. But we're planning on expanding here. He walks in. Before he preaches, before he says hello, before he says, I was in the house next door and sensed the Spirit of God speak to me and just say this word to you. And then he looked at me and he said, and if Pastor Jeff feels differently, obviously go with what he's saying, but I have to say this before I teach because it's burning in my heart. And then he said, I see, and had a vision, and he described a building that was elongated. It had a fountain. You would turn the key. It was a tall building. He describes all of this.
Goodness.
And he says, this is not your home. God is going to relocate you to another place. And his last words were, pack your bags. It's going to happen quick. That was on a Friday. Immediately, my heart's just postured. We're coming out of a 40-day fast. I'm like, okay, well, whatever God's saying. I didn't know what it was. Monday, the same realtor calls me. He said, hey, I'm driving up Sutter Street, and I see this building that's for sale. Jeff, it has the name Lighthouse written all over it. I just feel like this is for you. And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, 70 days later, we were in here. We did
70
5
days.
property transactions in 70 days.
70 days.
And 2 of those were commercial properties. I mean, it was Rock just kept going, I can't believe this is happening. And the week before we purchased, which would have been December, we got the keys to the property December 24th, Christmas Eve 2004. The week before, I get a phone call from the bank. They're like, we just looked at your financials. We can't loan you the money. You don't have enough money.
Always
you don't
have
have
to do
cash
that.
flow. And I would try to get out of the deal. We had already sold our properties, the
Oh my
church and the
gosh.
house. I'm trying to I would call Rock up. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I said, we're going to lose. At that point, we had already put about $500,000, maybe $700,000 down on this. We tried to call the owner, the seller of 1337 Sutter. He won't back up.
Wow.
He's like, no,
Wow.
no. So I'm like, what do we do? He says, I have a friend that will loan you $1.5 million on a gentleman's handshake.
That's amazing.
And then we'll go ahead and move
That's
the loan
amazing.
after that. It was one miracle after
Unbelievable.
another. Now I'm saying all that
Goodness.
to Lighthouse to say, like, it was, our posture was,
Yeah.
what's God saying?
It's listening.
Yeah.
The listening came before anything else.
Yep.
What is God saying? And then, of course, one of those prayer mechanisms we use is, so what is God saying?
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do about it? And so the listening value of we're going to listen and follow the voice of God, and then God shows up.
Yeah.
And gives a prophetic word. Oh my gosh. Jeff, hearing. The thing is that I know there are seasons in your life, there's been seasons in my life, and I'm sure for those who are watching now, there's seasons in your life that you've heard clearly this compulsion and voice of God. There may be other seasons where you're walking through a season where you're like, I don't know, does God even speak anymore? But I am here to encourage all of you to say that God is still able to speak to you, and you're able to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't, like, a lot of times it requires a certain amount of, like, an intentionality and an intensity.
Yes.
Of silence, like intentional silence and quieting
Right.
everything, the things that are creating the loudest cacophony around us, muting them so that you can hear, what the Spirit is tugging you toward, hear what the Spirit is saying to you. And that's why frequently in with the early people of faith, it involved like fasting, prayer, meditation, certain disciplines like solitude, getting away so that you could hear what God was saying and not just react, in anger, react out of fear, react because you have a chip on your shoulder, but learn how to really regenerate your heart around that voice that is sustaining all of creation and sustains us.
Yeah, I've heard it said that God often speaks the loudest when we are the quietest. And that's what you're saying is that there's this need for us to posture ourselves to hear.
Yeah.
In fact, aren't we going to call the church to prayer in this season?
Yeah. So Wednesday is Lent.
Yes.
Begins Lent, and then for the next 40 days leading up to Easter, it's been a part of the tradition of the church going back, I think, to the 3rd century, the 3rd century, that the church has given itself over during those 40 days leading up to Easter to prayer, to prayerful consideration, sacrificing something, taking something that you put aside as you hone your ears around God and His voice. So yes, and we'll be calling the church to a time specifically within Lent of 3 days of prayer and fasting.
Jeff, could you give some commentary on something for me? All right, so this is going to put Jeff on the spot.
This is on the spot.
This is what you call, is this extemporaneous?
Extemporaneous.
Because there was something this morning when I was thinking about this listening posture. I immediately went to Genesis 15 and Genesis 22.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to Genesis 15, and if you're not familiar with that story, it's where Abraham and Sarah received a promise they would have an heir. And in Genesis 15, chapter 15, verse 4, it says, "And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This one shall not be your heir, but the one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. Then he brought him outside and said, Look now toward heaven and count the stars if you're able to number them. And he said, So shall your descendants be." Now, this is the promise of of the son that would be born. We know this. We talk about the story in different contexts about how Abraham and Sarah were really too old to have, and there's this seeming moment of their time had passed, and there was not going to be a suitable heir. And then God gave a promise. Mm-hmm. Then you go all the way over to Genesis chapter 22, and so then they've been through a lot of things. So we had the laughing moment, you've had the angel visit, you've had a lot of things happen. Then you get to Genesis chapter 22, and so understand now, so that he was given a promise,
Right.
and it came to pass.
Right.
I mean, Sarah
Right.
had a child.
Right.
They named him.
Isaac
They grew him.
becomes a young man.
They nurtured him.
Yep.
And then 8 and 22, it says, now it came to pass after things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Then he said, take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Now, this was interesting to me because it feels like, Jeff, that there are moments in my life that you've been given a promise, and then you receive the promise, and you're like, so this is it. Yeah. This is exactly how the narrative is going to go. This is exactly how this story is going to unfold, and you've got it compartmentalized and fixed up, and it all will be well. And often we hear the voice of God when it's in the promise category. Like, oh yeah, that's God. Because God's given me new kids, and God's given me raises, and God's given me jobs, and God's given me houses and land, and God's giving me. And then God also speaks when he goes, you're also going to have to trust me. Mm-hmm. And I never like those moments when you have to trust even when you're hearing something you don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. And then in this story, Abraham, this is interesting to me because when you get to verse number, they tie the donkey up, they walk up the mountain, chapter 22. He puts Isaac on the altar. I mean, at each point, I was narrating as a father, going, if I've ever tried to hear God, I'm trying to hear God now. Mm-hmm. Because wait a minute, hold on, I'm about to sacrifice the very thing that you gave me. Mm-hmm. I'm about to release and let go and give up all the things that I thought you had for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like leaning in. And there are moments in my life, Jeff, that I have leaned in. And it's usually when there's pressure, when there's difficulty, when there's frustration, when there's anxiety, when things aren't turning out like I want them to turn out, I'm like leaning in. I'm like, okay, God, I want to hear. Mm-hmm. And I can see Abraham in my mind as he's going up this mountain at each step. When he's walking the donkey, he's like, okay, God, I'm listening. And as he continues up the mountain, he's like, I'm listening. And he doesn't hear until verse number 11. The angel said, Abraham, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for I know that you now fear God, since you've not withheld your son. Then Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and then God performed a miracle. Yeah. But Jeff, how often do we struggle hearing God and wanting to believe that this story is shifting in a way that I hadn't planned, but it is still God. Mm-hmm. God often surprises us with his voice. Yeah. And I have been through seasons in my life where I'm like, this is not what I wanted, this is not what I planned, but I can just see, I was seeing some of you out there in your life today, and you're not getting the news you want to get. You're not getting the news flash that you hope to get, but God is like, still in that. Mm-hmm. God is still in that. God is still in the process between when we hear the word and we act on the word. Mm-hmm. When we hear and when we do, God's still in that transition. Yeah. My old friend, Tia Tenney, the bishop in my life back in the day, he used to say, when you can't track God, you have to trust God. Mm-hmm. And I think that often when you're in a season where you're listening for God and you've heard something, and then it's this moment of transition, right? Where you're like, this is not going quite like I planned. That's where you have to trust. Yeah. Yeah. And you just have to trust. What say you about all that? That's what I want to know.
I think you said a lot.
Is there anything to say about that?
I think you said a lot. Whenever I hear this story now, I always think, I think about the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who wrote a book called Fear and Trembling. It was probably his best book, Fear and Trembling. But it's that whole moment when Abraham hears, and it's the process through, and he calls it the night of faith. He says Abraham becomes the night of faith. That there is this that he says very few people can get to, and he says there's two movements in that. The first movement is infinite resignation. Like enormous sacrifice and infinite resignation. And he says when God says, take your son, it says he woke up early. And he says this is insight into where Abraham's true values are. Like he loves his son, but God trumps everything in his life. And he wakes up early the next morning. He doesn't ask a question. He doesn't debate it. And Soren Kierkegaard will actually come in the book. He comes in the end. He says, when I read this, I realize I'm just not the person of faith that I long to be, but I'm not. So that's the first movement is infinite resignation. And here's the part that you get to when he gets to the mountain. He says the second part of faith that is the biggest leap it's not infinite resignation, but it is the absurdity of the return. The absurdity of the return. That Abraham goes, it's absurd to say this, but God will raise this boy up because he promised that everything was going to come through him. And so a lot of times we're asking the question around, why is God going through all of this? Why does God ask Abraham to do this? Is it, is he trying to test his love or whatever? And there's most Jewish scholars would say there's even a bigger movement at work because all the world that Abraham comes from, the Ur of the Chaldees, everything is about sacrificing your firstborn. That you please the fertility gods when you kill your firstborn and then you get a bunch of kids, you get everything that you want. And God is illustrating something both to Abraham and to the future progeny that I do not want human sacrifices. That is not my way. You do not kill your firstborn. I want you to have. I want it, the absurdity of the return. I want it to be returned to you. But Abraham just had the faith of it's just going to happen. And I think this is where a lot of us get stuck in that scarcity mentality, where we're not stepping into. And as you pointed out, I think beautifully, there is that flow of God's voice is a part of all of this, from go sacrifice to don't.
Goodness.
And that's the only words he has. He doesn't have, walk up this way, do this. I'm with you. It's going to be all right, buddy. You're going to make it. Doesn't have any of that. All of that, the walk is always faith.
This is why I love to bring up things that Jeff did not know I was going to bring up and just pitch it out there and see what he says. Because there's not many people I know that after having me said that story would have said, it reminds me of a Danish philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard, and in his book, and then he goes, no one else does this. Folks, that is the genius of Jeff. But
I'm sure Rickard will appreciate the fact that I'm bringing out.
Do you love that
Soren
Danish
Kierkegaard.
philosopher? But that's the absurdity of the return. That's a great, and people get stuck, Jeff, between.
Right. Yeah. I talking about sons. I think knowing that we were going to talk about this today, I reached out to Jed this morning. I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I share the little story that happened with you when you heard the voice of God for the first time?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, do that." I remember Jed was struggling with his grades in school, and not to get into all of that, but he just felt like he was not going to get a scholarship. He's 17.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the scholarship. I'm not going to get the college. My life. And he said, I just kept feeling like I was a failure. He said, no matter how hard I tried with school, no matter how much I studied, I would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning, get up at 6, go to school. He said, I just wasn't. I couldn't compete at that, and at that academic race. And he said one night I'd stayed up several nights. One night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, he said, I just threw my book down. He said, I just started sobbing, crying. He said, I just kept saying over and over, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. I'll never do it. My whole life's just going to be a waste. I can't do it. And he said, in that moment, he said, I just got down on my knees and I was like, okay, so I'm a failure academically, so I don't achieve this, I don't achieve that, but I've got to hear you speak. I just need to hear your voice. He said, then I went really quiet and I'm like, he said, I'm crying, I'm listening, nothing.
So good.
Listening, nothing. He said, and then I lifted my heads up and I'm like, come on!
You can do it.
You know, I said, I looked up at a book. He was in my
my
office.
gosh.
He said, I looked up and there was a book. And he said, it was almost like this book, the binding on it said Upside Down Kingdom. He said, it was almost like it was just highlighted. Like, grab that book. He said, I just knew it. He said, I reached up and grabbed the book. And he said, I just opened it. And it was a paraphrase. He said, I opened it and right there was a paraphrase of Matthew chapter 6.
Goodness.
Don't worry about what college you're going to, don't worry about what college you're going to go to, what career you're going to have, what clothes you're going to wear,
Yes,
whether you
come
fit
on.
in or don't fit
Come
in.
on.
But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And he said, I knew God spoke to me. Now, if you look at his right arm, he's got Matthew.
He does.
Matthew
That's
6
right. That's
tattooed
right.
on his arm. We were talking about,
That's
because
so
his life's just
beautiful.
taken a beautiful direction. We were talking the other day, I was like, with one of his business ventures, and I said, so what's the purpose behind this? And he went just like this. He flexed his muscle. He went just like this. He goes, everything in my life is about this. And I think once you have that voice
Yes.
speaking to you,
That's right.
and you start living your life in
That's
that
so good.
trajectory, it's so fulfilling. It's like you have that assurance, that certainty, that inner confidence that makes you courageous.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, I'm not going to go. He said, at this point in my life, I'm not going to college. That's not my path. All of my friends are going, and they're saying, he said, but I know what my path is, and I'm seeking that.
Because there are some decisions that you can make in your life that trump all other decisions.
Right.
So you make a decision early, at least in that, and for Jed it's Matthew 6, and now all decisions are weighed against that value. And I think that's what I love about this. So this value is so important to us, and I like that we're talking about it early in our value series because this is important to us.
Yeah.
I know it's important to you.
Yep.
You and I have been talking over the last year and praying and trusting God, and you've always said to me, when I get a word, when I get the voice, when I hear the voice, when I hear it, I'll know it. When I hear it, I'll know it. There's this value that we have as a community that before we do anything in life, I do this about almost anything. I joked this a few weeks ago with Jeff. You guys might have heard this story before, but I guess probably, 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, Jeff knew that God had put this city on our heart and partnered with Jeff on our hearts. And Jeff kept telling me, do you trust God? Of course I trust God. What kind of question is that? Of course I trust God. Well, if you trust God, why don't you just sell everything you have and put the rest of it in a U-Haul and just come on out here? Don't you think God will take care of you? And I was like, I'm not sure I trust God that much. But the fact is, it was a few years later, I was doing just that. You do get to a place in your life where the options of hearing from God and trusting God and moving on that become fewer.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, we have one of our mentors says this to us frequently. You can't have faith, like divine faith, without a word.
That's right.
Faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word. You need a word. And when you get that word, the faith is there.
Yeah.
Like going back to Jed as an
Yeah.
example. Once he saw that, it was like, oh, I can step out in faith and do anything. And I think sometimes we're trying to muster up the faith. Abraham had the faith because he had the word. Take your son,
That's
your
right.
only son.
That's
Like,
right.
once you get a word, it doesn't matter what it is, your faith can kind of, and I think we're, especially in our Insta culture and our Insta society, we want everything now,
Sure,
quickly.
sure.
We want to get rich quick. We want all these things. And a word from God requires patient listening.
Yeah.
And we don't have the time for that many times. It's like, I don't have time to listen.
Yeah.
Just send it to me and I'll do it.
That's right. That's right. What's on the gram?
Yeah.
What's on the gram?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about Insta whatever. I recently, Jeff, heard someone say that prayer is the difference between the best we can do and the best that God can do. And I think that's that listening posture, right? It's like, that's the difference. It's standing in the middle of those two realities, the best you can do and the best God can do, and going, it is important to stop in the middle between those two realities and go, God, what is it you would have me do? And that's the difference.
And I think, like, how do we do this? I think one of the ways that we can enter into that how is not that we have to control whether the voice speaks or what the voice says.
Right.
All we have to be responsible for is the posture of, this is frequently what I'll say, I am open and receptive
Yes.
to whatever you would say.
Yes.
And if I don't hear, I just continue doing what I've been doing.
That's right. Just what I've been doing.
But if I hear, then there's this energy, there's this life, there's this, this sense, and I'll frequently just say, I think the Hebrew word for listen, Shema, is a word that has within it the idea of listening with the desire to obey. An idea of listening with a desire to respond. I am listening with a desire to respond to what you would say. Not just, I am listening kind of like I would listen to my Spotify.
Right.
I'm listening because
Right.
it makes me kind of joyful. But it's like, I want to respond to what you say.
Chemo in the chat earlier just said he wrote Shema on the wall of the garage in the Bayview.
Nice!
So
I love
that's,
it, Chemo.
that's really good. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
posture I want to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes people view, I think, the posture of listening as a posture of inactivity. That is not the truth.
No, it requires more intensity.
Yeah.
It requires more activity to be still
That's right.
than it does to be active.
That's right. That's right. So the question, so let me put in the chat here, I would love for you guys to just put out there and let us hear. Number one, if this is resonating with you, if there's something that you're hearing and sensing God, just say amen to that. But I really feel like that I want to encourage people, Jeff, from Rickard in Sweden to Jim in Arkansas, to our local Bay Area, and to all those in between. Like, God is speaking and we are listening for his voice. And when he speaks, we move.
Yeah.
We act.
Yep. I think, of course, a lot of you know, Jeff, and a lot of you know, the Gospel of John is certainly as a candy stick for me.
Sure.
And this motif of listening and hearing is woven throughout the Gospel of John. Jesus' disciples are those that hear.
That's right.
The crowd are those that just observe. But those that hear what he's saying, those are the real followers. All the way you get to John 10, and Jesus comes out right and says it. My sheep hear my voice. I call them by name.
That's right.
And there is that idea that part of that frequency of listening in it embodies this beautiful moment of realizing that you are known by God, that he knows you by name, that he calls you by name, and there is this deeply personal, intimate sense that my name is known by the Creator, and I think that
Yeah.
hearing that will recalibrate you for a lifetime.
I mean, it is this notion, Jeff, if there's other moments, please correct me. One of the early moments is how I'll posture this. One of the early moments where God's voice is recorded in Scripture is at creation, when he says, let there be.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I was thinking of that today. I'm glad you brought that up. Isn't that? I mean, the earth even responds to his voice.
That's right.
Chaos responds to his voice. The abyss responds to his voice.
Yes.
Light comes forth from darkness, order from chaos. You have all of this burgeoning, beautiful colors and the animation of the ocean, the animation of the air. Just let there be, and it happens. And then at the end of the day, it's like, this is good. So there's the sense of fulfillment, the sense of joy that even comes from the voice.
So because I thought of that this morning early, I Googled something about it, and here's what I learned about it. Embryologists now have discovered, Jeff, that the moment of conception with new life, that when this is when sperm meets egg, that there are millions of zinc particles released in flashes of light that have been now caught and visually seen by embryologists, which mirrors the fact that when God spoke, let there be light, light and darkness separated. And it just illustrates that happening inside of us is this gene of creation that's in us from the voice of God.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I'm going to go to preaching.
I mean, listening to the voice of God is something, this is something that you will hear Jeff say, you'll hear me say. I'm always, what does God say?
Yeah.
What does God say?
And I think, one of the ways that you can, once you hear something, finding ways to symbolize that, finding ways to repeat that, finding ways to, I've been saying this ad nauseum in our Sunday times of just every hour my affirmation song coming on.
Right.
I mean, there are so many things in that I'm affirming that were words that I received, and I just speak. I give voice.
Right.
It's like I want to be an echo of what I'm hearing and sensing God say. I just want to echo it in my life, reverberate it out. This will be, even in the face, and you see this with Abraham, you see this with people, even in the face of difficulty or challenge, I want my heart to rest in the truth that I know that I am, that God is in me and through me.
What is God saying to you? And I assure you that if you will listen, God will speak. And in your life, whatever you're dealing with right now in your life, Jeff, this is what I feel in my spirit, is that God is going to affirm to you that He is listening to your prayers, and that you are listening for His voice, and God is going to speak in every arena of your life. Be encouraged today. You should put your shoulders back a little bit, smile a little bit, and just be confident of this thing that God is going to speak, and it's going to change everything. It's going to change everything for you. Well, we're going to move into our worship segment. And while we do that, I would love you to, as you're listening to the worship, begin to process kind of a listening prayer posture, listening for God in your life. And as you're hearing things, if there's things you're hearing, I would encourage you to put them in the chat. And Jeff and I are going to be in the chat with you, processing with you and praying with you and worshiping with you. And Jeff, would you just pray over the community and push us into this moment of prayer?
Yeah. Right where you are, would you just breathe in deeply and just hold it there for a moment, like that bated breath, and now just exhale. One more time. Oh, great artist of voice and sky, creator of all that was and is and will come, lover of our soul, peacemaker, truth revealer. We posture our hearts towards you. We are open. We are receptive to whatever you would say to us. Speak, Lord. Your servants hear with a desire to respond. In your silence, may there be glorious life, words, hope, joy. We are yours. As we listen to songs of worship and praise, our hearts are tuning in to the frequency of your beloved voice, singing over us. Thank you for offering to us Jesus as one who hears God, speaks on God's behalf, and shows us that we are sheep, beloved and known by our King. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you again. Good to hang out with you. Do a little worship today. Sing this. You heal the brokenhearted. You set the captive free. You lift the heavy laden. And even now you are living in me. Yeah. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal impossible things, yeah. You do impossible things. Put your hands together. Yeah, oh yeah. Woo! Here we go. This is us. Though I walk through the valley, darkness surrounding me, there you prepare a table, oh, in the presence of my enemy. Yeah. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal to the King of Kings. Oh, our God is with us. He will fear no evil. You do impossible things. You do impossible things. Sing it out. One word and the walls start falling. One word and the blind will see it. One word and the sinners forgiven. You do impossible. Sing it out, yeah. One word and the walls start falling. One word and the blind will see it. One word and the sinners forgiven. You do impossible things. Sing it. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal to the King of Kings. Our God is with us. We will fear no evil. 'Cause you do impossible. Sing it out. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal to the King of Kings. Oh, our God is with us. He will fear no evil. You do. Oh, you do, yeah. Yeah. Come on, just put your hands together. Wherever you're at, wherever you're watching, declare the goodness of the Lord. He's working on your behalf. There's nothing impossible. There's nothing impossible too hard for God. Yeah. Sing this one word, and the walls start falling. One word, and the blind will see it. One word, and the sinners forgiven. 'Cause you do impossible. Oh, you do impossible. Oh, you do impossible things. Sing it. 'Cause you do impossible things. You do impossible things. Oh, one word and the walls start falling. One word and the walls start falling. Yeah, oh, oh, oh. There is no healer like the Lord our Maker. There is no equal to the King of Kings. Our God is with us. He will fear no evil. 'Cause you do impossible things. Oh, come on, you glad about that today? You know what, I'm glad. I love that line in the song. It says, there is no healer like the Lord, our Maker. I love that he saw me, that he formed me. And I love this. I love that whatever I'm facing, I can know this is true, that he's my way maker. He declares good things for me, and I'm grateful. in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst, and I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. Come on, just sing that. I worship you. Come on, lift your hands and sing it out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, that is who you are. You are here, working in our midst. I worship you, Lord. I worship you. You are here, yeah, working in this place. I worship you, yes. I worship you, yeah. You are here, yeah, and you're turning lives around. Come on. I worship you, God. I worship you, yeah. You are here, yeah. Since you're moving on me, she's moving on you. Said I worship you. Come on, just lift up your hands, lift up your hearts and sing it out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper in the darkness, that is who you are. Come on, sing it out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Sing waymaker, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, your light in the darkness, that is who you are. Sing it. That is who you are. 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 Woo! That is who you are, Jesus. Come on, just lift your hands. Waymaker, miracle worker. That is who you are. Come on, sing this out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You'll never stop working. Come on. You'll never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You'll never stop working, Jesus. I know it's crazy in our world, and we may be facing fines, we may be facing persecution, we may be facing the fact that we can't meet together, but God, we understand that you're at a work right here and right now, and you're a way maker, you're a miracle worker, and I believe and I trust in you, oh God. So that is who you are. Come on, sing it out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Oh my God, that is who you are. Yeah, sing it out. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper. Yeah, that is who you are. So that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. I thank you, Lord Jesus. Yeah, 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 yeah. That is who you are. That is who you are. Oh, come on, sing it. Waymaker, promise keeper. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper. My God, that is who you are. You are so good, Jesus. You are so holy. You know, I just keep hearing this song over and over in my heart. And I love it just says, that is who you are. That is who you are. I was on staff at a church in Dallas, and we wrote a song, and it just simply said, my God, how great you are. How great you are. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Yeah, my God, how great you are. How great you are. Come on, just lift your hands. You can feel it right where you're at. We sing it out. My God, how great you are. How great you are. Sing it from the bottom of your heart, yeah. My God, how great you are. How great you are. He's a name above all names. He is worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. Oh, we'll sing how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will sing how great you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, come on, wherever you at, give them praise. Thank you. Declare the goodness. Declare the Lord. Church today.
what a beautiful worship set that I think gave us the space to hear and to listen. And I was just listening to, while I was here worshiping with Justin and with Jeff, just listening to what people were saying here, feeling such gratitude, excitement, anticipation might be
Yes.
the word.
Yes. Well, and if you're in the chat now, we're watching the chat right now, and if there's something that you just felt God really just share in your heart, I mean, just say yes, right? I mean, we're all in this space and we're listening for God. And I was watching, Jeff, the different chats. We are listening so good. Giselle, Promise Keeper. Just so good. Bruce, we love you, Bruce. And oh, Jeff, it feels so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just so they know, I'd love to see them actually say hello in that chat right now. Just there we go. I'll say it to myself. Hi. Wow, what a day! Such a good word.
It was a. I think it kind of set the tone for everything that follows after. You know, the listening is such a significant part of our faith and how that faith gets fleshed out, lived out. I think it becomes it's one thing to have this, right? It's one thing to have these words that are recorded that we can carry with us, but then you have something active right now that makes it personal to the moment, a message that is rooted in what we're in.
Yes.
And that's the life of the Spirit, right? It can take words that have been recorded thousands of years ago and speak them so that they're very relevant to what we're experiencing, walking through right now.
Yeah, I see Giselle's yes. Chin family is yes. Giselle, we love you. We're so glad you're part of our family. And we say yes to God speaking to you. Like God is speaking to you. Chins, we love you, family. And you guys are an amazing part of our community. Victoria, I see your yes. And God sees your yes. And Chemo, amen. Jeff, what a good day.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys for being a part of this today. And I think you also saw some fun moments today. When I sprung Jeff with Genesis 15 and 22, you see how he responded to that? He just out the park.
Well, you set it up so great. I mean, everything
so
that you were
good.
saying was like, I didn't know. I have to add Kierkegaard to it. You're speaking just Hennigan. It's like
so
you're
good.
speaking on behalf of Hennigan. I'm like going,
so
there's Kierkegaard. So
Oh
we had Hennigan and Kierkegaard.
That was good. That was good. Okay, so thank you guys for being here. A couple things to wrap up. This week we have our normal rhythm of Celebrate Recovery and Sacred Study. Those are online. We also have on Wednesday of this week, you should see in the notes right there on the campus, you should see office hours. And so we have a Zoom, and some of you showed up this week, and we'll just be there for Q&A, for prayer, for encouragement, just to say hello to you. And we'd love to have you engage with us in that way. Let's see, other big things happen this week, Jeff. We have some important meetings this week that we wanted to sort of have people join us in prayer about as a community.
Right.
And so you guys be in prayer this week, specifically this week. Oh, I saw the love. I love it. Hey, Jim, thank you. Put off family, yes, we love you guys. And so we have some important conversations with our leadership team this week and our board. So just be in prayer for us as we walk with a listening posture through this week, and then we'll start as a community during the Lent season praying and fasting together and listening to God together.
Right. Very good.
What else? You have something?
No, I've mentioned to the church, but just to kind of catch you up to speed on what's going on with Nepal, we have been in conversation with executives at Barna Group, and they've taken on this project for us that's resulting in something beautiful for Nepal, the Christians in Nepal.
That's right.
An opportunity for them to, what this could result in is an opportunity for them to be able to come to the political table.
That's right.
Be part of Parliament. So this is something. Here we are, a little old lighthouse in San Francisco, but being able to facilitate
Yes.
conversations at a governmental level as well as bring in partners that have the expertise
Yeah.
to help them do the research necessary to accomplish this goal that they have.
Giselle asked, are we doing something actually on Lent Day? So you want to speak to that?
So I know Jeff has already mentioned that we will be on the Zoom call on
Yeah.
Wednesday. So if you come into that Zoom call, of course, we'll have a time of prayer
Yeah.
during that time, and then really the 3-day fast. We're going to situate that within March. It'll be at the beginning of March. We'll talk a lot more about that, but that will be something for us. And I would just, I guess, I could encourage all of you to think of something you could do beginning Wednesday for Lent. And it may be for a couple of days.
Right.
We'll be talking a little bit more about this as we work through Lent, but yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking as it relates to Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, that's great. And so also, if you've enjoyed the worship the last few weeks, I'd love you to just throw some hearts and say shout some amens in the chat. That's been good. Justin's been a great blessing to us in the last few weeks, and you just felt that.
Yeah.
I just felt that some of you, as you were watching that today, you were encouraged. Your spirit is electrified, and maybe God was healing things and touching things. But we trust that even somehow through this digital format, that God is blending the virtual and the real,
Yeah.
and doing a real work in their life.
One of the things that we've been intentional with here over the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've talked about, even though we are in a virtual setting, how can we somehow pull in
Yeah.
a little somewhat prophetic, somewhat spiritual, so that it does connect with us when we're in our homes, in our cars, wherever we are. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, I mean, this is something that's heavy on our hearts. We want to somehow, and I think that the Holy Spirit is that, way maker through that, so that it doesn't come across as just kind of something you can play on Spotify, but it has almost a timeliness to it, a presence with it that you're experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, that's well said. So thank you again. You guys have been faithful in your giving, and I really, from the bottom of our heart, thank you. Our partners, thank you. The work in Nepal, thanks you. We thank you, and the mission in the city is great, and we can't do without you, our faithful Lighthouse family, and our partners around the nation. And so, if you want to participate today with giving, there are links right there. You can click donate. You can go to our website, or you can text SF Lighthouse and 277977, and then that'll take you right to a place that you can give. You've showed up, and you're helping us be sustained. We're not crushed out of the park. God is sustaining us, and there are moments where you're sustained, and there's moments where there's abundance, and God has sustained us.
Yeah,
and that's enough right now. We're thankful for that.
Yeah.
And so, get ready for your beloved benediction. Are you ready, Jeff? I'll try to put up the thing on here if you're ready.
What do you need to put up?
I was going to put the graphic up for them online.
Oh, that's sweet
isn't
of
that great?
you. Hey, just to remind all of you, the gathering on a Sunday to worship is a tradition that goes back over 2,000 years. It began when the first evangelist, named Mary Magdalene, came running out of the garden tomb area, rushed into the disciples, and began to proclaim or preach the life that had come through the death of Jesus Christ. Yeah. And she preached that message to a bunch of doubting disciples, men, but she was the first one full of faith. She declared that from that day to this, from that first resurrection Sunday to this, there has not been one Resurrection Day, one Sunday, where the church has not gathered somewhere around the globe to worship and to celebrate the new life that we have been given through Jesus Christ. So you, by being on this call with us here today, you are participating in that regular rhythm, resurrection rhythm that we are reminded of, that there is life through Christ that we all get to celebrate and enjoy. So if you'll get your and to use also ready, I will send you forth with the benediction. May the Lord bless and keep you. May his gospel give you peace. May his spirit fill you with joy.
May you be his disciples, making disciples. My favorite line.
May his face shine upon you.
And you be courageous ones.
receiving his
Receiving.
kingdom in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Mwah. Love you guys. Love you, Lighthouse.
So much love. So much love. Are we going to have that little song come on right now that goes...